Welcome to Business Success Tips, where you learn to make more money in less time and have more fun. I'm Paul Sanneman, your host, and I'm the founder of Contractor Staffing Source, where we help contractors build great teams. I have my guest, Kurt Hegetschweiler. I hope I got it right, sir. And
That's
he's
enough.
in Australia, which is interesting, right? It's with Fabian, the person recording this is 11 o'clock at night, 7 at night for me, but for him, it's tomorrow at 1 in the afternoon. So the world's a smaller place. So you are the founders of Builders Coach, right?
Correct.
Okay. So tell me about what Builders Coach does and why people should listen to you versus somebody else.
Okay, so quite simply, people would be familiar with business coaching. We coach builders, and that's our specialty. We work with builders 90% of the builders that we work with are remodelers, renovators, custom home builders that do between 2 and 10 mil turnover.
Okay.
And we do have others that are slightly bigger and slightly smaller. But my real specialty, and I'm not a fit for everyone. Obviously, there are a lot of great coaches out there, but my specialty is this is a book that I wrote. I've co-authored two. This is my own international bestseller. It's called Million Dollar Builder. So I've helped close to 100 builders get into what we call the seven-figure club, which is netting $1 million after 12 months. And after all expenses, including wages to self of about $200,000. And then, if you live in the Western world, you're going to have a tax problem with a net profit anywhere close to 7 figures. So our guys set up a development arm. They do subdivisions, flip houses, that sort of thing. And that's the business model that we set up and structure. So I tend to work with guys that are quite ambitious, have high standards, and want to implement best practice processes in their business whilst making decent money and building a dream team as well.
So tell me about how does one get to $1 million? I assume you have to do 10 million to get to $1 million net, right? Like 10%. Does that sound reasonable?
That's not far off the mark. So we found the sweet spot is between 6 and 7 mil turnover. And I like to keep things simple. We've got very simple metrics that we follow. So 25, 10, 15, 25% gross profit margin, all right? 10% overheads to turnover metric and a 15% net profit. Those are just sort of rough numbers that we use. But if you're doing $6 million turnover at a 25 gross margin, if you do the maths, that's a $1.5 million gross profit. Of course, you've got to pay your overheads with that gross profit. And if you've got overheads of $500,000, then you're in the seven-figure club. So somewhere between 6 and 7. Just had a guy incidentally contact me 2 weeks ago, just less than 2 weeks ago, who got into the seven-figure club at a 7 mil turnover, 33% markup, which is a 25 margin, and 700 grand overheads.
So what kind would you work with builders in the US and Canada? I mean, excuse me, and Australia?
US, Canada, UK, Australia, New Zealand, and South Africa as well.
Wow. So do you see any difference in those areas on how people build, or is it pretty much all the same?
Very similar. Like, markup and margins are the same in every country. Your profit and loss is the same. There's some tax differences. The main difference I find with my builders is themselves. It's the mindset. That's probably one of the biggest things I do. You would have heard 70% of success is mindset. A big part of what I do is telling guys to get out of their own way. Just finding out, where they need to change, how they think about finance, about marketing, about people management. Just running a successful business.
One of the questions I have, Kurt, is how do you get people, I'm going to call it from the craftsman mindset to the entrepreneurial mindset? Or do they all already have to be in the entrepreneurial mindset to work with you? Or do you help make that transition?
Generally, like I said, the guys come to me now, they want to get into that seven-figure club. And by the way, the timeline's 3 years. So we've got at least 4 guys that are going into that $1 million net profit position within 3 years of having started their business. So if they just haven't got their license.
Wow.
So it requires first and foremost a decision to do that, right? So life's about making decisions, and decision making is the hallmark of leadership. So most people make that decision and to make $1 million or to do their own developments and you know, do that consistently well, and then they find out there's someone that's got a roadmap that they can follow that'll accelerate their results. It's rare that someone comes to me and then I've got to, you know, point that out to them. So normally they make that decision, but you know, we run a lot of events, both online and offline, where people become aware of the fact that something like this even exists.
So a question for you, Kurt. You talk about mindset. That sounds like, you know, all I have to do is think positively, woo, and it'll work. I mean, what are the practical side of how you, I mean, is it marketing? Is it team?
No.
Is it drive? How do you make it happen?
Okay, so mindset, yeah, it's not about just positive thinking. Well, first of all, you got to decide you want something, right? And you decide with conviction. So there you've got direction. And by virtue of deciding on something you want, you then eliminate a whole lot of things that now you don't want, right? So clarity is power, all right? And it gives you, you know, when you make a decision with certainty, you know, you can move forward, and that's really important. But I can tell you now, and I spoke about this yesterday, we had a live event here in Sydney. I can give you all the best practice processes in the world and, you know, give it to you in the right sequence and help you implement, but it's not going to work if you don't have a growth mindset. And that's just having a mindset where you, when you make mistakes or things don't work out the way you anticipated, all right, we're looking at those as opportunities for growth and learning and course correction, as opposed to seeing them as failures, is what I'm talking about there in terms of a growth mindset. So people with a fixed mindset, they're very scared to make decisions and move forward. They're very stuck in their ways. They're not open to change. So you've got to be open to learning from outcomes and mistakes that don't turn out, things that don't turn out the way you planned. And then if you consistently implement, you have some drive and ambition to then implement best practice processes, the results will follow. So that's the mindset component I'm talking about, that growth mindset.
Implement, I mean, is it a marketing issue? Is it a people issue? How do you find the business to be able to charge the margin? Do you have like kind of secret formula on how to get those kind of clients? How does that work?
So how do we get the margin?
The clients, I mean, in order to do 7 million, I'm assuming, what's your average size project? A $500,000, million?
It depends. Yeah, some guys, yeah, $500,000. But the marketing, you mentioned marketing. Marketing is the holy grail of business. So marketing is what we call the front end, and it's really selling in advance. It's just communicating to people what it is you do. So if your specialty is architecture, design, custom homes, and for most builders, it's in a specific geographical location as well, then you want to communicate that exceptionally well. And looking at first principles of wealth creation, you want to stack the value. So differentiate yourself from the other builders in your area and be them, say, the Mercedes-Benz and not the Toyota. So people can see the value, and value comes in lots of different forms. It's not only how you build and delivering a project to standard, on time, within budget. It's also the build experience, the client experience, how you communicate. You can add a lot of value that way. So doing
How
that
do you find those people that want to spend the money with you?
It's the same way. So it's establishing a, well, first of all, deciding on your area of specialty, all right? That's the overriding strategy and what we call market positioning, which is the most important decision you make for your business. You've got to decide, this is who we are, this is what we're going to do, and then identify the people that you're going to communicate with, the people who are a good fit for what you do. All right. This is what every good brand does. The best people identify a market first, and then build a product to service that market. So there needs to be a market there, which is why your market positioning is so important. Once you've identified that, then you want to optimize the value, add as much value as possible, be as relevant as possible to that particular market, and then you get them leaning in. And if you do that well enough, you're not even going to have to sell. They're going to come to you. You'll be like a lighthouse, and these people will be drawn to you. Like
So give me some examples for somebody you've done that for. I'm some real life examples.
Okay. So a good example of we call it like a niche or an area of specialty would be, say, eco-friendly homes, green homes. A lot of people are leaning towards sort of green technology at the moment. Within that, there's passive house, which is a concept developed in Germany. And the people so there's a real market for passive house, and people that are into the passive house design and technology are borderline obsessed with it. All right. So price is not something that they care much about. It's a bit like people who are obsessed with Louis Vuitton or
Right.
Mercedes-Benz, or there's a certain brand, or Apple or Tesla. They are in love with the brand. They love the product. They're not going to deviate from the product, and they can't wait for the next release. All right. So there's identifying a market. And then if you're in that passive house space, again, the marketing systems are all about communicating your product and your offering to those people. And the best way to do that is through quality video content these days. Video is the number one medium within marketing. So you can create quality video content that explains the build process, how you work with people who want a passive house built, the prelim process, the pre-construction phase, the fact that you have a dream team, pre-construction, design, engineering, surveyors, cost analysis people to ensure you get the numbers watertight. And then there's all the features and benefits of the actual product itself. And there's a lot to talk about there. And there's constant changes and upgrades and new things coming in. So you become an expert in the space, a cardiologist, not a GP. And as a result, you build credibility and trust very quickly. And then when, in the same way that if you visited a cardiologist, you're going to trust that he knows what he's talking about because he studied one organ for 8 or 10 years. And also if he's got a good reputation in the marketplace, even more so. And then when you get the bill, what are you going to expect? It's probably going to cost more than your general practitioner.
Now question, Kurt, how do you find, I mean, I can see you can do in the movies, whether it's, the videos, it might be how to build a passive house, how to build a, modern house, how to build tradition. There's got to be some market. How do you get the people to watch the videos to get the credibility?
How do you get them to watch it? You just put it in front of them. So you want to have an online and an integrated online and offline marketing system. So online would be Instagram, Facebook, House, your website. And then your website would have, they call it a lead magnet, something people can download, the 15 essential things you need to know before building your passive house. And then in there, they download it, and it's a 27-page beautiful document that's got video content and links, and it's content rich. And when people read it, they genuinely learn things. All right. They then go into an autoresponder sequence where you can update them again with quality video education-based content, social media following, and that lead magnet email list keep growing all the time. Then your offline marketing would be, your site signs, banners, vehicle signage, brochures, shirts, everything else that then often drives people online as well. And as you build a bigger and bigger following and a bigger list, you eventually also, you get pent up demand, people coming to you once you've established yourself and you've got good credibility, so that your marketing essentially helps you create your own economy of supply and demand, where, and this is what we do with our clients, where there's more demand for you than you can supply, which is counterintuitive. And then you have a deselection process and you cherry pick the best jobs, so that eventually you have a sushi train of jobs coming through that are perfectly staggered. And then you can optimize for job delivery, profitability, efficiency, and client experience, which is marketing, which then closes the loop. But if you're doing 6 or 7 mil, it doesn't matter if there's what's happening in the macroeconomic conditions. You could have a downturn. You're not a big volume builder. You're small, right? Not even medium sized.
Question: control. How much money would you spend on marketing? It's like 10%, 5%. Do you have a number you use?
No, I'll get asked that a lot, man. How much you spend on marketing? How much other builders spend on? How much do other builders like me spend on marketing? And
right.
It's about the answer. I don't want to give you like a how long's a piece of string answer, but it is return on investment. Marketing should be an investment. You should be testing and measuring. We align ourselves with good marketing people who specialize in the building industry and who are essentially scientists. They test and measure. So to give you an example, one of our marketing strategists, so she's like the conductor of an orchestra, and she knows copyright people and Facebook ad and SEO and CEO, pay-per-click and Google ads and video content creation people. But what they would do, if you're a builder, should look at your 3 biggest competitors in your area, in your space. So let's stay with the architecture, design, building space. Look at your 3 biggest competitors. You look at how they're generating their leads. They go into the back end of their social media, the website, everything else. Then based on all that information, are they in magazines, on TV? They then put together a marketing strategy or a plan for how they believe you will best be able to generate quality inquiries for your business. And then they have like a 10 by 10 marketing plan. So at least 10 different marketing channels, but again, based on that research that they believe will generate results, and they run with those. And as they initiate each of those marketing strategies, they test and measure. So we have, a client down in Melbourne that was doing exactly this. And the pay-per-click ads were not generating nearly as much traction as the Facebook ads in their particular niche. So they literally shut that down after a month, took the budget for the pay-per-click, put it into the Facebook ads, and they were getting 74,000 views per video on that particular channel, in that particular area, in their particular niche. That's very, like, it's location and niche specific.
So it sounds like, I'm just taking a guess, we're looking at like 12% of gross, right? It's not cheap, I'm assuming.
Yeah, and it's not about cheap. Like, I've been in a room where a guy was spending $45,000 a month on Google ads, but he didn't start spending 45. He started spending maybe $2,000, and he got 3 or 4 contracts off the back of that, and then he increased it by another 2,000 to 4,000. And he got another 2 or 3 contracts off the back of that, and then went up, and then he was eventually doing 300 builds a year, whatever it was. So it's a case of you test and measure, but if you're going to do anywhere near sort of the 7-figure club builders will spend anywhere from $70,000 to $100,000.
Right.
So that's right, 10 to 12%. But it's provided it's test and measured. Most guys, profit, workflow, cash flow are the 3 metrics that we look to optimize. Workflow often becomes a bugbear for a lot of guys, where even if they're booked out for 12 months or 18 months, they worry about what's going to happen after the 18 months. And we're going to go off a cliff, or what if I don't have things booked in? Because if you can get a major cash gap if there's a huge gap between jobs, especially if you're doing big jobs and there's long lead up time. So having good marketing systems ensures continuity, and that you control that. But most guys, if they can see there's the end of the workflow coming, they panic and they just throw money at advertising, mindlessly. They just throw money at advertising or whatever, and it's not tested.
So it seems to me also you got to prime the pump, which a lot of contractors aren't willing to do, right? I mean, in marketing, you can't say, "Oh, I can't get to spend. I got a $2 million company. I'm going to get to 7 million. I'll spend 3,000 or 4,000 months a month and see how it works." You can't. What doesn't work, right? You got to be more aggressive, I would assume.
More aggressive in your targeting,
your spend and what you're doing, because you're gonna. I mean, marketing is something that my personal belief, even though I have a difficult time explaining it, is that most successful companies are marketing companies that fund their marketing with some kind of product or service. They get it, right? Whereas a lot of builders think, well, I do a great job. The phone rings, I'm good. And when you say, well, you're doing 2 million, I want you to spend, pick a number, 50,000 on marketing, they freak out.
Yeah. Well, they don't know the ROI, but if they knew they were spending 50,000 and making $1 million, how often would you do that? Or even half a million every day of the week? Or even if it was, give me 50, I'll give you 100. Right. They would go and find as many $50,000 bags of money as they could. So yeah, it's just that's a mindset thing. It's understanding, have that mindset that marketing is an investment in your business. Your accountant will often look at it as an expense. Look at an expense column. So that's a shift that needs to happen. And there's multiple shifts in and around that. But marketing is the holy grail. It's what gives you that consistent quality lead flow. And if you've got a sales process that converts consistently as well, then you've got workflow. And if you're pricing your work right and you're holding the margin on delivery, then the numbers take care of themselves, which is what I love about what you do.
Demand and supply drive pricing, right?
Yeah. I like what you said there. Sorry to interrupt you. The marketing, I've said it to builders. I've said it to my general contractors I work with. I've said, you are a marketing company that builds houses. That's what you are. And then I've said, like, within marketing, it's using education-based marketing. An educated client is a better behaved client. If they understand what you're doing and how you work, and that your best practice processes are engineered and set up to best serve them, then they'll be more compliant and follow your lead, not the other way around. Most clients think they're the prize because they've got the money. So that's really important. And, within that education theme, really, you're a university that builds houses, because you educate.
So I'm clearly going to say nobody should hire you that isn't willing to change or have the right mindset, because it's just not going to work, right?
Exactly. It's the same as, if a client approaches the builder and they want their carpets ripped out, but that's not what they do, right? They build architectural houses. It's not about being pushing them away. It's just politely referring on to someone else. Yeah. So yeah, like I said early on in the call, if you don't have the right mindset, I can't help you.
Right. And so I'm going to go over again. What is the right mind? You got all these guys listening to the podcast right now, and they're all thinking, well, do I have the right mindset or not? How can somebody listening to this podcast decide whether they have the right mindset or not to work with you? And then if not, how they get it, or it doesn't even make sense for them? How do they tell?
Okay. Are you open to change? All right. And the reason I ask that question is the skills, mentality, mindset that you have now got you to where you are, but those same skills, mindset, and ideas are not going to get you into the 7-figure club. So you're going to need to make some changes. Are you open to changing your mind about some things and changing your mindset?
Right.
And if you look back in your life and you can see that you've done that, where you've been able to recognize some blind spots, if you like, and you're open to being coached and to listening to new ideas and doing things differently, then no, it's off and away. And then obviously there's doing some hard work. You still got to do the push-ups. You've got to implement. Implementation is key. Speed of implementation helps. And that's what peak performers do. They're open to change. They're constantly looking for a better way of doing things, and then they implement quickly and well. And the way they do that is with good people, surrounding themselves with good people. There's a great book by Dan Sullivan, best business coach in the world, called Who Not How.
Right.
And it's the one book that the vast majority of our 7-figure club builders or general contractors point to as the number one contributor to their success.
Okay. So I think you're looking for the top 2%, in my opinion. They're not your average builder. I can just tell you, I work with literally 1,000 builders, and I can count on, my hands and feet, the people that would qualify for that. They're driven, they're willing to change. Because I remember I've been in coaching for 40 years, and sometimes I'm giving the same advice for the whole year in a row, right? Like call on architects or whatever the advice is, hire the right people, hire slow, fire fast. I mean, whatever. It's just their willingness to change is probably one of the most difficult things I found to work with, at least in coaching.
Yeah, you're right. It's not it's not that I won't work with someone who's average. I'll often have someone who's average and then convert them over to someone who wants to follow best practice. Like the way I see it, if you're going to do something, you might as well do it properly. If you want to do it, if it's no use just doing it good or very good. If you can do it, what's the best possible way that you can structure your marketing, your systems, your finance, your team? If there's a way to do it and I can share it, why wouldn't you do it the best way that you can? Why don't you become the best version of yourself? Why don't you become the best leader that you can? And then that spills over into other areas of your life. And that's why I enjoy what I do, because it does, the builders I work with, they become like this beacon of light in their community, and they do, tend to motivate other people and help raise standards in the industry. And it's a good thing. It's good for them, good for the industry, good for everyone in their community, their families, their kids.
So what you're saying is pretty much any builder in any reasonable market, not in the middle of nowhere, but somewhere where there is a market, they can find their niche. They can focus on that niche, whatever it is. And with somebody's help like yours, if they're willing to, they can get to $1 million in revenue, net income, if they really work at it and are committed to it.
Yeah, net profit after wages of around 200. Yeah, absolutely. Anyone can do it if they're prepared to do the work. And part of the work is making sure they've got the mindset about staying open to, reflecting, reviewing, course correcting, making the changes. And it's a beautiful thing, because I'm teaching someone how to do that. And once they know how to do that, once you know how to net $1 million a year, because I'm teaching you how to do it, and you've got the mindset, I don't want to say it because I'm going to use an expletive, but no one can take it away from you. Even if you did lose everything and someone stripped you down to your underpants and dropped you in another state, you'd be able to make it back again.
I mean, that's true. And if you take a group of 100 people, and there's the rich people and the poor people, you redistribute all the money equally. Within 2 to 3 years, the rich people is the rich and the poor people is still poor. It's just the way it works, right?
That's right. And we've had a couple of conversations. I can see just by looking in your eyes that you've got that knowing. And you tell me how liberating it is to know because you're not going to lose your money. You're not stupid. You know how to hold on to it. And if it gets divvied out, it'll come back to you. It'll be attracted to you because money gets drawn to people that know how to respect it and make it.
Right.
But it gives you get a confidence, you get a charisma, you get this. It's a great way to live, and I think it's quite rare. A lot of people live with a scarcity mindset. They live well beneath their potential. The upper end of human potential is untested, and why not? Why not live an extraordinary life where you can give back? At some point, the money becomes inconsequential, and I know that for you. You can't just go sit on a beach and do nothing and play golf. You've got to be doing something. You know what I mean?
Right. Yeah.
Exactly. Yeah.
So I would say I'm going to appeal to. There's probably I'm going to say this podcast goes to about 500 of our affiliates and clients, and I'm going to guess there's only 5 or 10 in that whole group that are probably willing to take your advice. I guess that's my experience. Now, if you're one of those 5 or 10, I would highly recommend you call Kurt because he'll tell you how to do it. But if you have any doubt and go, no, I've heard that stuff before, no, I'm probably going to forget it. Don't call him. It's not going to work. Guaranteed. But if you're one of those people that say, oh my God, I believe this guy can actually do it. And you have that, I want to change. I'm with the mindset. I know I can make $1 million a year. I just need to have the help. I think calling Kurt is a great idea. If not, I wouldn't bother. Does that make sense to you?
Great, absolutely. If you're uncertain, if you're skeptical or uncertain, and how do I know this guy can help me? Grab a free copy of my book. Jump on builderscoach.com. I'll send you a paperback copy. It's on Amazon. You can get it's on Audible. You can listen to it. Listen to the first couple of chapters. It's either going to resonate or it's not. If it resonates, you'll know. Give me a call. Let's talk. Yeah.
Okay.
I love what I do, and I love taking.
So the first thing is you're going to have to read, in my opinion, or look, or someone get exposed to the $1 Million Builder, right? And you can get that on Amazon. It's really funny. I had one of those aha moments in my life. Right, it was many years ago, but I was driving in my car. I was going up in the snow, and there was my son's friends were with him in the back of the car. They're all like 16, 17, something like that. And they said, Mr. Sanneman, you're very successful. You made a lot of money, have a lot of fun. Looks like you're a happy life. What do I need to do? And I said, read these 4 books. And I haven't got any time to read those books. You know how much those books cost? And I went, you're good. Right.
Well, there you go. That's like, that's the mindset there. Like, are you open to learning and then doing the work? And it's not any more complicated than that, right?
That's true. Well, I highly recommend that for 5 or 10 of you out that actually get this message, I would call Kurt. For the rest of you, I would not bother. So, okay, Kurt. Thanks for being here.
From you. Yeah, if you do feel like you're a fit, and if you're motivated and driven, and
if you really believe you can make $1 million a year, I would call Kurt. If you think that's impossible, don't bother.
By the way, I bet guys, I can show you examples. I've got interviews of guys where they did not believe it, but they came along for the journey anyway, and they're now in the 7-figure club, and they're like, I didn't believe that it was possible, but it is. And then they go on to inspire other people.
That's great. Well, Kirk, thanks a lot for being here. Once again, your book, and where can they get it? I think they should know that.
Builderscoach.com.
Okay. It's builderscoach.com, and go in there and get the book. And you work with anybody in Australia, New Zealand, US, Canada. Don't worry where you live. If you've got the right attitude, you'll make it work, right?
Any English-speaking country at this stage.
English-speaking country. Cool. Okay, thanks, Kurt. I really appreciate being here. This has been great. This has been very inspirational.
Thank you, Paul. Appreciate it.